Good afternoon and welcome to KTN NewsDesk. My name is Edith Kimani. This is where we bring you the news as it happens. Let's get this show on the road. We begin with news from the capital, where it was a tragic night in Nairobi, South B Estate, after a wall surrounding a mosque collapsed, killing 9 people. Now, the wall collapsed due to heavy downpour witnessed last evening, mounting pressure on that wall, and rescue operations are currently still ongoing. Here's Sharon Momanyi with the details.
Tears of sorrow following the tragic death of loved ones. 9 people have thus far been confirmed dead following the Monday night incident.
The injuries by then were 7. That was by 2 a.m. 4 women and 3 men. We had to call off the operation at around 2. At around 2 because of rain.
The wall, which collapsed 9 p.m. Monday, is said to have been weak, and the heavy downpour saw it collapse onto the structures built next to the wall at Mukuru Fuata Nyayo slums.
Kwanza transformer ililipuka. Mara ikimaliza dakika 10 hivi. Nilistuka kama hii wall inaanguka chini. Nikatoka, nikapata kama anti yangu aliumia vibaya. Na wengine, kuna wengine hapa Mkisii, jirani wetu pia alikufa, nilisikia uchungu. Na kuna wengine pia hapa chini, mwingine anaitwa Perez, na kuna wengine msichana mwingine hapo tunajuana nayo pia alikufa vibaya.
Bahati nzuri ile imetokelezea stima kwanza haikuwa. Stima ilikuja kazima kwanza, ndio baadaye ukuta ukaanguka. Sasa katika ile hali tukajigawa, wengine wakimbize majeruhi hospitalini na wengine sisi tukabaki kutoa watu katika wale wamekwama ndani.
4 people are receiving treatment at various hospitals in the city. Rescue operations are still ongoing, with officials fearing that the death toll may go higher.
Kwa sasa nimesikia ni watu 9 ambao wamefariki kutokana na janga hii. Mimi ninataka kusema nitashughulikia mambo ya mazishi yao, mambo ya saduku, mambo ya ngali ya kuwapeleka nyumbani.
The heavy downpour witnessed in Nairobi Monday night resulted in floods that wrought havoc across the city. Some roads were rendered impassable, with certain areas witnessing the submerging of vehicles. This is not the first time heavy rains have caused danger in the city due to poor drainage, with pressure now mounting for the situation to be rectified. Sharon Momanyi, KTN.
Well, we're certainly following the events of that story to see if at all any more people will be rescued. Elsewhere, the National Assembly's Public Investment Committee is asking the Auditor General to issue a comprehensive report on claims that Herbert Ojwang was denied an 870 million shilling commission for securing a contract to upgrade the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret. Now, Ojwang linked Deputy President William Ruto to the deal, and KTN's Aaron Ochieng is following that development and that story, and he now joins us live from Parliament with further details. Aaron, what's the latest at this point?
Well, it was a closed-door meeting by Public Investment Committee probing this particular tender of expansion of Eldoret Moi Referral Hospital. And they were looking at what Herbert Ojwang had presented on Thursday and trying to scrutinize the legitimacy of what he's claiming. And what the PIC concluded was that they are asking the Auditor General to constitute a team to probe the allegations that Herbert Ojwang is leveling against the Deputy President. And at the same time, PIC is also coming up with its own committee to investigate the dossier that Herbert Ojwang presented that links to the Deputy President into all this. What Herbert Ojwang is complaining is that the Deputy President, using his powers, erroneously deleted a number of people who want to do the tendering procedure of Eldoret Moi Referral Hospital, and recommended that Eldoret Moi Referral Hospital should not be expanded, but another hospital be built adjacent to the current hospital.
Okay, now I'm very keen to know, I know you did say that it was a closed-door meeting, but if you've spoken to any of the committee members on what Health CES Macharia said last week on Friday, defending the Deputy President, saying that there was no inflation of the tender and that the costs were yet to be determined. Has there been any mention of this whatsoever?
Yes, it was a closed-door meeting, but they did speak to the press immediately after that. Well, they didn't go into the nitty-gritty of whether what the Cabinet Secretary said on Friday is there anything substantial. But what they just said was that they are leaving this matter to the Auditor General and the Committee of Public Investment Committee before they could make any recommendations.
Well, we wait for those recommendations and, of course, what will come out of that closed-door meeting that Aaron Ocheng, our senior political reporter, is now following for us with regard to the contract and upgrade of the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. To Nyeri now, where the county government has announced a ban on hawking of cooked food as one of the preventative measures to avert cholera infections. Nyeri has not yet reported any cases of cholera, but its neighboring counties, Murang'a, has registered 278 cases and also 2 deaths from cholera so far. Nyeri's Minister for Health, Dr. Charles Githinji, says the ban will be enforced by public health officials who will be accompanied by the police. Homes that are not supplied with piped water, such as those in the slums, will be supplied with chlorine tablets for their water at no charge. Preventing the spread of cholera in Nyeri also comes just a few days before the 3-day beatification ceremony of Sister Irene Stephanie Nyaada that will draw visitors from all around the world.
I will immediate effect ban all forms of hawking of cooked food in Nyeri County. May it be that githeri, may it be sausages that have been called smokies, those eggs that kashubari is put in between like a sandwich. All those are cooked foods and at very high risk of spreading cholera. So people selling githeri by the roadside, or you are cutting sukuma wiki, and then on the side you have a bucket of githeri, get rid of the bucket of githeri. But for sukuma wiki, since it is going to be cooked, the heat, then there is no issue with that. The hotels, even though we had inspected at the beginning of the year, when we were issuing the annual renewal licenses, we are going to do a re-inspection with a view of making sure that the sanitary condition of our hotels are at par with the expectation of the Act.
From health to land, and the chairman of the National Lands Commission, Mohammed Swazuri, has revoked a title deed of a plot adjacent to the city market, which had been issued to a private developer. Now, the underdeveloped plot is currently used as a parking lot. An employee of the private developer who collects parking fees told the commission that the plot is owned by a Mr. Hassan. He was, however, unwilling to provide any more details. The plot was intended for the future expansion of city market, but was irregularly allocated to a private developer by the defunct City Council of Nairobi in the late 1990s. Now, the market, which was meant to serve an initial 132 traders, is now congested. It now serves almost 5,000 traders, some of whom operate along the corridors. Now, according to City Market Traders Association, the initial private developer was Market Plaza Limited, who later leased the plot to Metro Park.
In 2009, the land minister, James Orengo, revoked the title. When he revoked the title, we went to the city council and asked them permission to use the plot. We used the plot for about, we used the plot for about 1 month. Then thereafter, we were taken to court, us together with the city council, that by the grabber. Then we were stopped by the court from using the plot. But the funny thing here is, us plus the city council were taken to court. The city council went ahead to give them permission, permit to use the plot.
Public utility plots will be left for the public use. na it is the work of the commission to protect and preserve public property use. Kwa hivyo tunawaambia kwamba yule ambaye amenyemelea na amechukua hiyo plot, tutamwambia kwamba kuanzia sasa hii plot imerudi kwa public.
Residents of Nyakenywa Farm in Trans Nzoia County are protesting against alleged harassment by the administration of Trans Nzoia East Sub-County. They say they are the legal owners of the farm, which they have been instructed to vacate. They say they hold a title deed in the name of Nyakenywa Women's Cooperative Society, which they claim was given to them by the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta.
Sasa kijana wengine walikuja kutoka wakati hiyo tumesubiri, wana wa kijana wakakuja wakaingia hata wakanyakua mang'ombe, wakanyakua wengine kuuza mete hiyo pesa wakaenda naye, wengine wakakufa wakawachwa wawili. Kutoka hapa wakapeleka sisi kotini. Nilifanya kesi miaka 20 na ngapi? Na tano. Alafu jaji akaendea na hiyo kesi nabuye. Mimi hakuna mahali sijakanyaga, hata Githumo nimeenda kutafuta huyu jaji. Mpaka kesi ikafika mwisho, ikakuja ikamulewa. Tukuje akasema hii rolling inaandika na hakuna koti ingine, hii kesi itaenda. Kutoka hapo wamama waendera Muthoni Ng'ang'a aende apatiwa chamba yake 2 agawe kwa members yake, na makitabu wenye rechukuliwa na DC warudishewa waendelee kugawa. Sasa huyu wako DC antarudisha mwenye wako hapa.
From Matters Land, we take a short commercial break. When we come back, my colleague Michael James Karanja will be talking about green growth with one Edward Mungai, who is the CEO of KCIC. He'll also be telling us about the fuel supply constraints being experienced in Nairobi and its environs. Abby Agina has just gotten back to the newsroom. We have something small for you on that. Do stay tuned.
And welcome back to KTN NewsDesk. I'm Michael Karanja. Now, I've just received word from a roving reporter, Abby Agina, who's out on the ground, especially following up on this story about fuel shortage. And he says it's a mix of where there are supply constrained by some oil marketers who have not been able to receive fuel, and others who are actually just operating on limited supply. And motorists already queuing up at the few petrol stations that actually have fuel. So he's going to have a comprehensive report on that story later on in the day. And just to focus, perhaps moving away from that, just to focus perhaps on renewable sources of energy, perhaps as it were. I'm now joined by Edward Mungai, who's the CEO of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center here in Nairobi, just talking about what it means going green. Perhaps, Edward, if that word going green, we've used it a lot, and I think we've used it loosely from time to time, but what does that whole initiative about enabling green growth actually mean?
Yeah, thank you very much. And really talking about green growth, yeah. And Kenya Climate Innovation Center is one of the institutions which is trying to enable that movement of going green. Yeah. And here we have two components. The first component, I think, is growth. And that component of growth is all what we need in Kenya. And specifically to improve livelihoods. Yeah. Of course, we need to create jobs. We need to have more disposable income. But then at the expense of that, we can choose to either do it in the brown way, the black way, or the green way. And here we are saying we want to do it in the green way, which basically means that we are using, or we are taking care of our environment. And going green really is a concept where we are saying all what we do should align to making sure that the future generations have better livelihoods. And that can only be safeguarded if we have better environment.
A lot of companies are actually big on this idea now. I've actually started talking about things like sustainability and the way they do business and the way they operate, and then their contribution to what happening in the environment. But when you see that, are we at a stage where perhaps you're comfortable with the direction that companies or individuals are actually taking to more making Kenya more climate environmentally friendly?
I think the biggest challenge we face is one of awareness. Yeah. And this awareness is where we as individuals or as companies, we haven't come to realize that actually going green, number one, pays, and number two, it safeguards the future generations. And therefore, with the entrance of Kenya Climate Innovation Center, which is a World Bank initiative funded by DANIDA and DFID, is trying to spearhead this movement by having small and medium enterprises changing, if you like, their way of thinking and their way of doing the strategy to try and embed social issues, environmental issues into their business strategy with the aim that then we'll be able to produce and at the same time consume in a more responsible way.
Upfront costs, especially when it comes to looking at more renewable sources of energy, have not been the cheapest. But then how then do you piece that together with what changing the mindset of perhaps everyone who's coming into business or even everyone who's existing to kind of it's an initial high cost, but perhaps it will pay dividends in future?
Yeah, and really the key point, really speaking about the private sector, I see the private sector facing three challenges. One, the first challenge is obviously what you highlighted about financing. And financing is because these projects, which we are saying let's green them, are competing with other projects which are not green. And remember, we have limited resources. So therefore, we must have a mechanism that will enable the private sector to have access to finance. And for instance, like within Kenya Climate Innovation Center, we have a seed fund where you can get up to a maximum of $500,000 to put green strategies within your organization. The second challenge, which is happening, is about enabling environment. And this really is where we are calling the government to come in. And really, the government of Kenya is very progressive in the sense that we have the green growth strategy, we have the action plan on climate change, and we have, as the first country in the world, actually, Climate Change Act, which is coming up soon. And when you look at these things, then we are saying that we are going to create an enabling environment. I think the fourth or the third element is about that awareness, that the managers and CEOs and shareholders have to shift from the fact that we are not looking at the shareholder, we are looking at the stakeholders. And the stakeholders, one of the interests is the environment, is social issues. And once we put all these things together, then the equation will work and we'll be able to see green growth happening. And remember, green growth is not a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing. And we are looking at 3, 5, 7 years to go. We are not looking at months.
How do you incentivize then people to actually go green?
I think different ways. One is, first of all, the private sector itself recognizing that actually it pays. And for instance, we have what we call CSR, corporate social responsibility. To me, that means cosmetic social responsibility. And that's what a lot of the enterprises have been doing. Sending blankets here and there and mosquito nets. We need to have them implementing corporate sustainability into their business strategy. And that then, there are two ways we can incentivize them. The government, for instance, we know with the budget is coming up, probably they can put a taxation mechanism where if you invest in solar panels, if you invest in mini hydros, if you invest in weed, then you'll be able to get some rebate from the government. And that will encourage, and please note that we are not giving subsidies. It's just encouraging them to be in this sector and trying to show them that within 5 years it will pay back.
All right. Thank you very much. That has been Edward Mungai, CEO of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, just talking about how companies can actually adopt this going green agenda and how it creates a sustainable environment for future generations. Edith Kimani, what's happening in the news?
Well, there was a demonstration to condemn the murder of a woman who was gang raped and killed on Saturday night at Maragi Estate of Murang'a town. And this has led to the arrest of Kiharu MP Irungu Kang'ata. The MP who led the demo that saw Mukuyu Murang'a Road closed was arrested by police in Murang'a police station immediately after the officers dispersed angry residents with tear gas canisters. Irungu Kangata, the MP for Kiharo, just before he was arrested. Further afield, Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza has rejected an appeal from the European Union and the United States to delay the June 26th presidential election. Now, the EU called on the delaying of the electoral timetable, saying that that would help calm the situation in Burundi, where there have been deadly protests since Nkurunziza announced his intention to seek a third term. Burundi's constitution, as you might have known, ruled that Nkurunziza's first term does not count because he was picked by lawmakers and not elected by voters. Hundreds of opposition supporters yesterday took to the streets in the capital, Bujumbura, in defiance of government orders to end their protest. East African leaders will hold an emergency meeting in Tanzania tomorrow to discuss the Burundi crisis. Still on continental news, scanning the horizon with binoculars, Tunisian coast guards are on the lookout for the growing numbers of migrants risking their lives crossing the Mediterranean to try and reach Europe. But with the modest means at their disposal, it's no mean feat first to detect and then come to the rescue of migrants who get into difficulties despite the improving weather conditions.
Scanning the waters for migrants in distress. These days, that's one of the main jobs for the Tunisian Coast Guard. A lack of resources, coupled with more people trying to cross the Mediterranean as the weather clears up, means they're struggling to keep pace. They even have to rely on fishermen to help with rescue missions.
It's normal that in some cases it's the fishermen who intercept the migrants, because there are hundreds of fishing boats in international waters, so they outnumber us. But that doesn't stop us from being there with all the other security forces, and we intervene whenever necessary.
With neighboring Libya, another popular departure point, now in a state of chaos, the number of African and Middle Eastern migrants venturing into Tunisian waters is increasing. 366 alone were rescued in April. Some are now housed here by the Red Crescent, but with a boat full of migrants arriving almost every other day, space is at a premium.
We have a limited capacity, so we cannot take on too many people. Our number of volunteers is limited, our means are limited, and from what I've seen, the means of the state are limited too. We need more support from humanitarian organizations.
Ali Kone left his home in Ivory Coast 9 months ago. He's already traveled through Mali, Algeria and Libya. He then tried to cross from Tunisia on a cramped inflatable motorboat, along with 96 others.
We had a serious problem at sea off the Tunisian coast. After we passed the Libyan coast and we made it to the coast here, everything went wrong. The boat was pierced and it started to deflate, but then we saw the fisherman's boat. We called them and they rescued us.
Rescued migrants often attempt the trip again. In 2014, more than 220,000 of them reached their destination, according to the EU. And despite the hundreds of deaths already reported, many more look set to take on the sea for a better life in Europe, meaning more busy days ahead for the Tunisian Coast Guard.
A look at the sports, and Germany's Bayern Munich require a miracle of sorts to overturn the 3-goal deficit when they host Barcelona tonight in their return leg match of the UEFA Champions League semi-final clash. Soccer pundits, however, say that feat is not surmountable. The line of through is informed by Bayern's quarter-final 3-1 loss in Porto, but managed to win the home leg 6-1.
Bayern Munich's 3-0 loss to Barcelona in the first leg last week was partially attributed to lack of its traditional firepower provided by the sidelined wingers Frank Ribéry and Ian Robben, who are both out for the season, while Barcelona are at full strength. Add that to the absence of defender Holger Balsba and left-back David Alaba means that the German champions require absolute miracle to overturn the score. Guardiola rested 4 first-choice players on Saturday against Augsburg: keeper Manuel Neuer, midfielders Xavi Alonso and defenders Mehdi Benata, and Rafinha in that match that they lost by a solitary goal. Barcelona rested 5 players, including Andres Iniesta, Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets, but beat Real Sociedad 2-0 to boost their title hopes. Bayern retained belief that the club can pull one of football's great comeback, with Thomas Müller believing that his club has what it takes to give it a try. Barcelona are chasing a club record 48th win of the season in all competitions.
Time to wind up this edition of KTN NewsDesk. Thank you for your company, and because you've been so generous with your time, here is your Did You Know fact this week. It is Palindrome Week. If you're sitting there wondering, what does that mean? It means that every date this week is the same backwards as it is forward. So today is the 12th day of May 2015, so 5/12/15, and backwards is 5/12/15. Tomorrow will be 5/13/15. It will be 5/13/15. What are you going to do with that information, you ask? I don't know, but you have it. My name is Edith Kimani. Good afternoon.